What's up, you guys? So, today I'm going to be talking about, who I am, what I'm about, what this channel is about, and, where I'm going. So, first off, what's up, you guys? My name is O'Shea Johnson. I'm actually a spiritual advisor turned business leader. If we're to quantify anything, pretty much first we have to go to my history. So I'm mixed, black and white, Swedish specifically on my white side. And I grew up with my grandparents. My mom went to jail at a young age. Things happened, so I was raised by my grandparents, which gave me you know, a different foundation in how I view life. I was raised with, two, in a sense, two parents, two grandparents that loved each other. My grandfather is very honorable, very noble, very chivalrous, always provided for the family, no matter what or how it affected him, which I really respected that. I went to for schooling, I went to Maria Montessori Elementary, which is a private school, specifically in San Diego. I grew up in San Diego. And, from there, I grew up a pretty normal childhood. I really I really like skating, and then later I got into scootering. I became a professional scooter rider, and at this time I was playing a lot of video games. I played a lot of video games growing up. Assassin's Creed, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, a whole bunch of different games. Then, around my teens, I started to get into a video game called League of Legends. This game took up so much of my time. If you're thinking about playing it, I don't recommend picking it up. Across different accounts, I racked up around 18,000 hours, which, the 10,000 hour rule is if you've done anything for around 10,000 hours, you pretty much mastered it. But I didn't go too far in that game, only got to about platinum. And it's about the same time in my life I started to become more spiritual. Before this, I was atheist. I didn't really believe in a higher power. I really didn't believe in anything outside of myself, which I now understand that was definitely my ego tricking me. You know, I started to meditate. I got into Buddhism around 16 or so. Around 17, I started meditation. I also grew up I didn't really watch too much American TV growing up. I was more into anime. I watched a whole bunch of anime, probably over 300 things of that nature. Now, around 18 years old, I had a near-death experience. I tried to do the worm, the dance move, and I actually smacked my jaw into the ground. Ended up killing myself. Ended up dying, which I was someone that it's funny how things manifest when you want it so bad. 16, anywhere from 14 to pretty much to 18 to 20s, I was heavily depressed, heavily anxious, not really understanding why, which I was very heavily nihilistic. So, which just it pretty much I understood more than what my reality was showing me. And this nihilism, this anxiety, and this depression actually eventually led me to wanting to go about becoming a psychologist. So, pretty much around 18, heavily getting into meditation and going through this spiritual awakening through my near-death experience. I I started to go to college, and it's in this time I also started to go to a lot of raves. I started to dabble in different drugs like ecstasy, cocaine, acid, shrooms, psychedelics, a lot of things of this nature, which only contributed to my spiritual awakening. It pretty much shoved my third eye open, and I started to see the universe in and my life in a completely new way. And it's weird because I went from, just being a normal kid playing video games and hanging out with his friends, skateboarding, to now just being very spiritual, just wanting to meditate all the time, just wanting to kind of be with myself and going into this introspective journey. I just really wanted to go within myself and understand the nature of reality, understand the nature of who I am. It's at this time I started to get into magic, right? I started to get into shamanism, universal laws. Not knowing it, I started to get into manifestation, but I was more in the magic side of things. Now, as I started to spiritually awaken, it's around like 18 to 20, I kept telling myself, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur. And I didn't understand really what that was, but it was something I knew I had to go about this journey and become an entrepreneur, to start building a business. So as I start to go about my spiritual awakening and understanding magic and manifestation and how you can create, realities, I then started to heavily work with, Egyptian gods. I started to understand reality in a new way, more of a, you could say, for those people that are more scientific than mysticism or magic, quantum physics. I just started to understand quantum physics and the nature of reality. Now, at this time, I started a channel called Occult Cat TV, which I'll kind of be referencing that here and there. But that is more of an old chapter of my life, but it's still a part of my life. So I started Occult Cat TV, and I started to share experiences in which I was going through in my spiritual awakening, working with deities, magic, understanding a greater nature of reality. And as I started to, express myself and share the things that I knew, I gained I gained a following, and then two, I also gained an income. People started coming to me and wanted to learn how to work with deities. They wanted to learn how to manifest, how to create realities, or just understanding themselves and their own psychology, right? So this is where I became a spiritual guide, or a spiritual advisor, you could say. I started to advise people and help them better understand themselves. So going back to entrepreneurship, that's pretty much a business is making money, right? So I was making money, but I didn't understand business. So when you're making money but you don't understand business, this can create complications because you're not looking at it as serious as it could be. I definitely didn't take this channel, okay, I'm making money, cool. I'm able to fund different projects and invest in myself. I'm able to pay rent, cool. But a business is to look at it more serious, is to understand, contracts, negotiations, networking. Even my YouTube channel, I really wish I would have taken that a lot more serious in the beginning, instead of just sharing my ideas, right? You can actually see the progression of that channel, that as I started to pretty much evolve within myself, I started to understand things like copyright. I started to understand creating YouTube like pictures, right? And now it's at the same time that I was going to college around my spiritual awakening from 18 to 20. And as I was going to college, I was going to college to be a psychologist, right? And I understood a lot about psychology, I understood a lot about the mind, but it just wasn't fulfilling my soul. I just started to realize that college is pretty much just, or rather psychology is you just pretty much telling them medications that they can use, and just I realized it wasn't really solving a problem. So at this time of making a channel and starting to become a spiritual advisor, I actually then dropped out of college. I really didn't know at this time what I wanted to do with my life or where the trajectory was going. But I started to actually just go into nature every day with my dog, and I just went into a forest that was by my house, and I just started to just introspect as I was with nature and with my dog, and I started to look at life a lot differently, because I was unplugging myself from this matrix of you have to grind, you have to study all the time, you have to meet deadlines, all these tests. And I remember a specific day in school. It was actually in the class of sociology where we were doing like a test on the board, and it was like raise your hand, and I raised my hand and I answered these different questions, and to me it seemed correct, but then as I answered them, it was wrong, because it was wrong in the eyes of the system. It's just someone's perception. Someone creates a system and then they judge things a certain way, and they have you play into that game. And the thing is, I didn't want to play into the game of school, of society, of following these rules and these standards. I wanted to instead become my greatest version. And so I quit. I left school, and I just kind of I doubled down on my channel, and I doubled down on being a spiritual advisor. Now it's at a certain point, I started doing that for around 5 to 7 years, right? So I became a credible source within my industry, which at that time was magic, the occult, and just spirituality overall. And I carried that for a long time, till at some point I stopped with my channel, and I got a direction change in life. It was one day I was sitting at the beach, and then these Christian rappers, like this guy comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, do you rap?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "We're gonna be performing over there if you want to perform with us." And music was also a heavy part of my life at this time. And out of nowhere, he just puts his hand on my shoulder and he's like, "Can I give you a message from God?" And I was like, "Shoot, go for it." And as he puts his hand on my shoulder, he tells me, "You're meant to be a business leader. This is what God is telling me at the moment." And at the time, it just started to make sense. I got flashbacks to when I wanted to be an entrepreneur at around 18 years old, and this whole time I actually was delving myself into business. This is when I started to shift from being a spiritual advisor to being a business advisor or business leader. I had built a brand and a business for myself, and now I started to get into copywriting. I started to get into sales. I started to really understand all the aspects of what it is to own a business, run a business, and as well entrepreneurship. I started delving into different ideas of income and different businesses in which I could start. And this is pretty much where I am now. I am a spiritual advisor turned business leader, and I'm working with different people in order to help them to build businesses, while I also develop my own skills, which is copywriting is my main one at the moment, and copywriting for real estate agents, while also doing wholesale real estate, and then teaching people how to build business and also become entrepreneurs. So I started to fulfill the vision in which God gave me. I started to teach people not only, themselves and spirituality, but I started to help them become financially liberated. And in this process, thus doing it the same for myself. Some of us are meant to be teachers, just like some of us are more meant to do. I always look at myself as more of a coaching role. I give really good ideas, first for myself, and then also giving good ideas for others. So, this has pretty much been the journey of where I came from, where I am now, and where I'm going. What is the vision I see? I see myself as a entrepreneur owning a lot of different businesses, but most importantly teaching people how to create business in this new digital age. As we went from web 1 to web 2 to now web 3 development, I want to teach people the future of entrepreneurship and where we're heading in this digital age, such as the fact that I've always been a proprietor of cryptocurrencies. That was something that always stuck out to me a long time ago. It took me a while to get into it and to invest, but it's something that I can see my heart is at. A lot of people are crypto people, in my opinion, and there's people that are meant to make money. They're more spiritually aligned with money as a concept for them, and then some people are more their direction is cryptocurrency. They can just somehow manifest this a lot greater. And the thing is, for myself, I'm definitely someone that manifests crypto easier than money, and that's the thing that I want to say makes me also different than a lot of people, is that I don't want to just teach business or entrepreneurship, but I want to teach people the spirituality to it. The fact that your nervous system, that if you haven't started to heal yourself of the trauma in which you've endured, whether it be childhood or even, recently, that if you don't dissolve that, well, first, if you don't dissolve your ego and you start to work with your nervous system, then you're never truly going to manifest wealth. There's always going to be your ego getting in the way, stress, anxiety, things of this nature. Pretty much what this society and this reality tries to do is govern your nervous system, centralizing it, when it's just like crypto. It needs to be a decentralized network. And this is what you do with starting to reprogram your mind. That as you start to reprogram your mind, you start to uncover the truths of who you are and who you're meant to be, and as well what you're meant to create, your destiny of sorts. This is also why you're meant to walk the path of your destiny, so that you can align with the reality that you're meant to create. And this is where you can use manifestation to follow your destiny, to build business, and as well create your reality. So the future of what I see myself doing is being a huge, is pretty much being a business leader on a grand scale. I want to open up a casino at some point. I want to be a lead, or I want to build up a pretty much a hedge fund for trading. Be a guide or a lead in this Web3 development, in creating and manifesting this digital reality, bringing it into the world. And on top of that, also, I want to get into acting. I want to take my music career put it fully out there as a rapper, and as well, I have a metal band, and that's something in the works that I'm releasing over time. And this is just the vision that I have for myself. So this is just me pretty much putting it out there, manifesting it, creating it. And I advise, or I ask that you guys do the same. Whatever your goal is, whatever you're trying to create, whoever you're trying to become, put yourself out there. And know that as long as you keep pushing that into reality, you will become that one day. The image in which you see within your mind will be created in your life as long as you have focus, you have clarity, and you have faith in what you're doing. And you believe and you know that to be a truth and as well a reality. See your reality, that which you envision within your mind, so clear, so real that it overrides this reality. See it so real that it can't not but be true. And with that, my friends, that's going to be the video.